What's going on, guys? Alex here with TFL Bike.
And Case, and Yamaha just dropped the most exciting news Alex could have heard.
Yeah, very exciting news because we have an all-new XSR900 GP. So they took the XSR900 that I obviously love enough to have one in my garage, and they made it even cooler by giving it some race bits and making it even more nostalgic.
Yeah, this is something that even I can get excited about because it's all about that 1980s Grand Prix nostalgia. So this is designed to look like those 80s and 90s race bikes. And that was a big era for Yamaha. It's when it really started to take off for them.
Yeah, for sure. So really started to take off in the 70s, but according to Yamaha, if you ask anyone involved there, anyone who's been around racing at Yamaha, the 80s was really the golden era for them. And I think Andy would probably agree with that too.
So obviously the biggest thing about this new XSR900 GP is the bodywork. I mean, there's some other changes, and we'll talk about that too. But first and foremost, you notice that new bodywork. So it actually has a fairing up front. It's got a cowl over the rear of the bike instead of the bigger seat, which I know has been a point of controversy for a lot of people. Even the side covers are slightly different. And then you have this awesome retro color scheme too.
Yeah, the color scheme really does it for me, especially the combination of, red and yellow. You've got these big yellow spots on the tail and up in the front that you could slap some numbers on if you wanted to, make this your race bike. But just a really wicked design and really does look nostalgic. I mean, the front fairing, it's not like a modern front fairing that you see every day today. It's got the support bars that go back to the front of the tank, which you never see on modern bikes anymore. But that was a thing from way back in the day. And then the windscreen up top that, kind of surrounds, goes all the way around instead of tapering off into a plastic bodywork up at the corners. You don't see that anymore either. And then the headlight obviously is super different. The XSR900 that debuted a few years ago that I have, big old round headlight. That's one of my favorite parts about that bike actually. But this, you have a much slimmer horizontal compact module headlight. Again, that looks like it belongs on a race bike.
Yeah, it's a really cool fairing. I wish there were more bikes out there that had retro full fairings like these because there's obviously a lot of full fairing bikes on the market, but this just looks so much more unique than can you name another full fairing bike that looks like this?
I can't.
Not today.
No. Z900 RS, don't they make a pretty cool retro fairing bike?
They do. It's not as substantial of a fairing. This is more full fairing. That I feel like is more of a headlight cowl.
Yeah, totally. That bike, obviously a little more of a naked bike, and this one's based on a naked bike, but definitely still has more of that fully faired super sport look almost.
Now, aside from the styling, there's a lot of other really cool things that they've done here, and partly in making it more aggressive. So they added clip-ons instead of the solid handlebar like what you have. And they've also changed up the ergonomics a little bit with the foot pegs as well.
Yeah, so they didn't go too much into specifics on how that looks, but I would imagine they raised them up and maybe back set them a little bit. But if you look closely, you can see there are some adjustment screws there, so you can slightly change the position of these foot pegs. And yeah, like Case said, clip-on handlebars, they are a rise style, so the clip-ons rise up and then the bars come out. So you're not going to be fully hunched over. It's still probably going to be pretty comfortable, but you do have that clip-on design. And then also the switchgear on the handlebars has been switched out, which is huge because the XSR900 I have this little jog wheel. You go scroll it up and down and you push it in to go to menu, but every time you push it in, you end up scrolling at the same time. So they moved to a 4-way joystick with a center press, and I got to use a similar looking system on the Tracer 9 that I rode not too long ago, but it's good to see it's trickling down to some other bikes too.
Yeah, and part of the reason that they've put new switchgear on this is because there's also a new 5-inch TFT. So your bike, his older XSR900, has a 3.5. This new 5-inch is not only bigger, but it adds some extra features. Things like you can actually hook up turn-by-turn navigation on it, which is a nice thing to have. Other thing that I think is cool about that new switchgear is if you give a light press to the turn signal button, you can actually have it do the 3 flashes and then it automatically cancels like a lot of modern cars, which I think is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, because how many times have you guys commented on a video where we're reviewing a bike and our turn signals are just flashing the whole way down because we forget to cancel them? Yeah, happens all the time. And also, kind of on the same note, Yamaha says that there's an emergency brake light system in this as well. So if the bike detects that you're coming down to a stop very quickly, it will flash the brake light as well to alert people behind you that you're coming down to a stop.
Yeah, and you also have new integrated riding modes that make things a little bit easier. So you've got Sport, Street, and Rain. And I know you've got some adjustability on your bike, but this system just sounds a little bit more user-friendly.
Yeah, and this is a trend we've been seeing lately. So on my bike, it's got tons of different tech, and you can go through and change the different modes. And then there's a custom mode as well. But the standard modes were just kind of lettered, like 1 through 3. And you kind of had to memorize what that did. And then if you went into the custom one, you could fully change things. Now they've given them names, which thank you, Yamaha. Same thing happened on the Tracer 9. Same thing happened on the ZX6R I rode recently. They're just making it so when you switch one mode on the bike, it changes everything, and it's just easier to do. But you can still go in and get full customizability if you want it.
Yeah, and it's a lot more clearly labeled. It just makes it way easier. Now, something that we haven't mentioned up to this point is that technically this bike is announced for Europe, and of course we want to see it here in the States. But we think that there's a really solid chance that this is coming to the States.
I think they'd be stupid to not bring this to the States. The CP3 sells really well in the United States. Retro styling is totally in the United States right now. And for a long time, a lot of the Yamaha bikes, the more premium special editions, were only seen overseas in Europe and Japan, and we got stuck with the base models here. But the last few years, we've been getting all the SP models and all the fancy stuff, so I don't think there's any reason Yamaha wouldn't bring this to the States. This is just how it happens, though. Everything gets announced for Europe a little bit before it gets announced for here in the States.
Yeah. And of course, there's a lot of people out there that have also been hoping for an R9 to come out, basically a full-on super sport with the CP3 engine in it. And of course, this bike is not quite that. But it's still really nice components on this bike. It's cool to see it with a full fairing, and so it feels like a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I really hope I get a chance to throw a leg over this. I'm a little sad this came out because my XSR900 is still brand new and sparkly, and like the new factor that hasn't worn off
yet. It just got one-upped.
Yeah, exactly. So that always happens though, but man, this thing is rad, and I know a couple people who are going to be itching to get this. I don't think this is going to be an easy bike to find. So
no, I really don't either. And they have yet to announce pricing. They've yet to announce how many of these that they're going to build. So it's hard to say how hard this bike is going to be to get your hands on. They have said that there are going to be 2 colors. There's going to be the Legend Red color scheme that we're looking at here. There's also going to be a color scheme called Power Gray, but this is the color scheme to get, hands down.
Stop making all black motorcycles. It just doesn't need to happen. Anyway, there you have it. 2024 XSR900 GP. This is, like we've been saying, this is that newsy time of year where all the new bikes come out, and then rolling into spring, we'll hopefully get to throw a leg over some of them. So check out alltfl.com so you don't miss any of it. We'll see you in the next video.